just that idea of slowing down traveling, slowing down our lives, just looking at things from a completely different point of view and having the time, because it's just you and your bike and the sound of the tires on the road, and that's all there is.
Welcome back to the Beat the Often Path podcast, the cast where we showcase unusual success stories to help us all think outside the box and build better stories of our own lives. And yes, I did hear myself just refer to this podcast as a cast, and I already regret it, and I may never do it again. My guest today is Lori Tierney, who worked for many years at one of the top language institutes in the Netherlands, and that's where we met. When she retired, she was left with the question, as so many are, of what comes next. Never one to back down from a challenge, she began a series of long-distance bike treks around the world, a journey that led her to set up a foundation in Kenya. Now she's using her talents to make the world a better place, and her story contains deep wisdom on life and making big changes for anyone willing to hear it. So with that, here's Lori Tierney. Welcome to the podcast, first of all, Lori. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
You know, there has been a traditional path that has served people well for many years, decades, possibly even 100 years. You know, you go to school, you do this, you get this job. There's a system that everybody bought into, and that system worked for many people. It seems like now with the pandemic, people losing their jobs, the overall trends in AI, the internet, computers, a lot of parts of that path don't make sense anymore. It just doesn't work anymore. And a lot of people are being left behind. So the concept, the Beat the Often path, is to give unusual success stories to show people different ways of looking at living a life, essentially. To give inspiration for people who might have doubts.
Yeah.
So if somebody out there has just lost their job or they want to change to another career, to give them inspiration about what the next thing could be. So I want to pool a broad group of people, as many as possible, who have done things in an unusual way or who have made decisions that are atypical.
Yeah.
And hopefully through that, it will inspire people to think a little bit differently and get the ball rolling on what the new world is going to be like.
Yeah. I think the things that I've done in the last 2 years that are unusual, is I think, because of my age, people think, well, how can you possibly do that? Is I just got on my bike. And 2 years ago, I cycled from Land's End to John Ogroats. I don't know if you know that, so it says anything to you. That's the most westerly point of the United Kingdom to the most easterly point of Scotland.
Is that not what Ewan McGregor did on Long Way Down on a motorcycle? I think there was a show.
I think so. Yeah, I think so.
I believe it was literally that route, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I did it on the bike. It took me 26 days.
Wow.
And because of this foundation I have, and you know, the fact that, you know, if you've got enough and you've got talents, whatever those talents are, you know, we think of talents, don't we, as intelligence or being very clever at something, but it could just be pedaling a bike, using your legs, and off you go.
Yeah.
And then last year I decided to go. I cycled to Rome, so I left Amsterdam one very hot August morning. And I cycled the 2,500 kilometers all the way down through the Netherlands into Germany, all the way down to Austria, a little tiny bit of Switzerland, and then of course Italy, crossing over the Alps and the Apennines Mountains as well. So they were pretty tough. Okay. And, you know, people say, oh, wow, what, you know, why do you do that? Well, it's something to do for a start. And I did it also in a lockdown. So in that window of opportunity where the virus decided it was going to sort of not be so virulent, so borders were opening, and I managed to get through all these countries. And I never knew from the moment that I left, would I make it into Germany? Would I make it into Austria? Would I make it into Switzerland? And I made it to St. Peter's Plain in Rome. And it was just, I'm writing a book about that now, pedaling through Europe in a pandemic, just that idea of slowing down traveling, slowing down our lives, just looking at things from a completely different point of view and having the time, because it's just you and your bike and the sound of the tires on the road. And that's all there is, the birds and the trees and you don't know who you're going to meet during the day. You don't know where you're going to sleep that evening. So you've really got to kind of let go and let kind of life just do what it has to do. And it does an awful lot of things. You meet interesting people, they give you food, they help you, but we've kind of lost that the art of doing that. So just to slow down and see the world from a completely different perspective, it's quite fascinating.
So maybe before we jump into this part of your life and your career and your ambition at this moment, maybe tell us a little bit of the overall story of your life leading up till now, the short version.
Okay, who I am, for example, or
yes.
What I do.
Yes.
Okay. Let's start with the very basics then. I'm a wife, I'm a mother, have children and grandchildren. I'm a teacher, I'm a philosopher, I'm a writer, I'm a long-distance cyclist, I'm a runner. So I think that kind of gives you an overall sketch of...
I'd say so.
Who I am.
All very normal stuff, very typical stuff right there. So anyways, this is going to be boring, I can tell already. So amongst all of those things, one of the interesting things is how can people build a life and a career, because they go hand in hand. If if you don't have any money, you're not going to be able to do any of the stuff that you want to do. So how have you managed to take all of these disparate ideas and activities and forge them into something resembling a career?
I think there's just one word really, curiosity. I have a huge amount of curiosity. I think we've also lost the art of curiosity. Being interested in others, being interested in different things, in different worlds, in different countries, in different people. And I think also the luck, and I think I'm going to call it luck, that at my age that I've got a huge amount of energy and I can do it. But maybe I can do it because of the curiosity. I don't know. I've never actually taken the element of curiosity out of it to see what would happen to me if I didn't have that, if you get my
I do,
line
yes.
of thought.
Yes. Okay, so yeah, and in this curiosity that you talk about, it has led you to some interesting places all over the world. You've recently switched gears, pun intended, I guess, into a new path. So maybe talk a little bit about what happened. You're at the retirement age. So what is the latest thing that you have been doing?
Well, when I retired, after working as a teacher and as a member of the board and as head of a department, so I made a career in the institute where I work, where we met each other, actually.
Where we met, yes.
Exactly. And I worked there for 42 years and 5 months, don't forget the 5 months. Wow. And so when I retired, I decided I was actually too young really to stop working. I still had I love work, I love teaching, I love sharing ideas with others, getting ideas out of others, helping people towards the next step. It's something that I do it without the feeling that it's a job, that it's just something that I enjoy doing. I enjoy meeting them, learning from them, as well as them learning from me. So I started off my own little company called the Nomadic Educator. And I felt that it fit with me because nomadic, meaning that I like to travel and teach. So it was kind of like anywhere, anytime, so any country, any time of the day, or if you're in LA and I'm here, we've got different time differences, for example. And so that is something that I really enjoyed doing, and it took me to Italy to work, to Milan, it took me to Paris and to London, and also just here in the Netherlands. It's not something that I always do 5 days a week. Sometimes it could be 3 days, it could be 2 days. You could have a week where you were given no tuition whatsoever, and then off you go again for a whole week of non-stop lessons. And I kind of like that idea of being able to be more versatile with my diary. And it gave me time as well to do the things that I really love to do, and that is cycling and long distance cycling. And I also have a foundation in Africa, in Kenya, and by cycling and doing something like cycling, it used to be more the running, but now it's more the long distance cycling. And then I use it as fundraising. So send it out on all different platforms, Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, and also sending out letters or just contacting people, business people or whatever. And that enables me at the moment to send 15 girls to school in Kenya from the slum areas that would not have had the chance to get an education. And I just feel that education is the way forward for many people to not so much a successful life, but at least to get a job and to get themselves out of poverty more than what they would if they didn't have this chance. And it doesn't really take much. It's that talent. I've got this talent that I have the energy to be able to cycle, the idea to do it. But I also have a fantastic husband who is my wonderful crew, and he goes ahead like 100 kilometers. I'm cycling, let's say, to Rome. He'll each day go ahead 100 kilometers and set up camp and go and buy food and make sure I have enough carbohydrates in my body and proteins. Yeah. And he'll follow me and we have great fun. It's kind of an expedition together, which makes it fun as well. And on the way, you're also fundraising and collecting and talking to people and telling them what you're doing. So it serves all different purposes. It's fun to do. It satisfies your curiosity. It satisfies your that you love traveling and meeting new people. And after that, you can write about it. But at the same time, you can raise funds to be able to do something, and that is send these children to school. Mm-hmm. So that's what's been keeping me busy since I retired.
I was going to put an actual sound effect of a car screeching there, but I'm not going to do it. But I do want to stop the action for a little bit and interject if I might. I never do this, but I want you to not be a passive listener of this podcast. What do I mean by that? You've been enjoying the concept. You like hearing these stories. You like the effort that it takes to bring you these stories and inspiration. I encourage you to be active in your consumption. By that, I mean like the post where you find it, comment on the post on Instagram or on YouTube. If you really like the show, give it 5 stars in Apple Podcasts, subscribe on Apple Podcasts, subscribe on Spotify, tell your friends. Help me spread the word and help me grow this thing with you. I would really, really appreciate it. I'm not going to ask a whole lot of you on this show, but if you do enjoy what you're hearing, help me grow it, help me spread the word. I would really, really appreciate it. So with that, let's get back to the episode. I do want to jump in here with a quick note for those listening. So the place that we met is a language institute in the Netherlands, and when you spoke about curiosity, I feel that is a great environment for curiosity because it's a very unique language institute in that you teach one-to-one. It's one of the top language institutes, maybe the still top language institute in the country. You teach one-to-one with a lot of very different people, kind of like this. You're in a room with celebrities, with rappers, with chefs, with people from Eastern Europe, people from Sweden, Scandinavia, all kinds of people. The head of the EMEA region of a massive multi-billion-dollar company one week. You never know who you're going to get. So I completely understand that somebody like you would stay there for so long because with people changing every week, it's always a different story. There's always more to learn. And you have a captive audience and you get to learn from these people that you'd probably never meet in real life ever.
No, exactly. Yeah, like ministers and ambassadors and CEOs of large companies. And as you know, as well as I do, you could have somebody from a large company. You had no idea what it is they make. You've never heard of it before, but all of a sudden you learn so much. Oh my gosh, I didn't realize how that works and how that works. You become a kind of jack of all trades but master of none in your knowledge of.
Yes.
Oh, I know about that. Oh, I've heard about that.
Right.
Which again is for the curiosity. And as you said, exactly that one-to-one where you can build up this kind of rapport, this kind of very special relationship with a student on a very professional level, of course, where they sort of grow in confidence and dare to talk to you and to tell you things that you don't literally share outside of that room, because they're quite confidential about their company, and you become that person that they like to share the difficulties they're having in leadership, or dealing with employees, or promotion, or the fact that they might lose their job. So you become the psychologist, the listener, as well as the teacher. But that's what you loved about it as well, I think.
Absolutely, yeah. It was fascinating. And I had no idea that was coming when I applied for the job. All of that was a bonus. Yeah. I had no clue that there would be all of that stuff. But that was, for me, the best part of the whole thing.
I think that's the reason why I stayed there so long.
I believe it.
Yeah, it's because of the you met society, didn't you, there?
You did, yeah.
And also now, of course, I have to, although lots of my students, they phone me up or via LinkedIn, or they go via. But there you just literally sat in your chair and they were offered to you, weren't they? I know it's not quite like that, but that's how it felt sometimes.
Yeah.
They were timetabled in, and everyone, all of them were lovely. And if they weren't lovely, then you knew that after 5 days they would go, but they were always lovely. I mean, you could always find the good in everybody. I found there wasn't anybody that I thought distasteful or that I didn't want to teach. They might have been a bit offish in the first hour, but the second hour you'd get them up and talking, because I suppose that's what we got good at, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And you might say I'm trying to recreate a bit of that feeling with this podcast. And there are similarities. There's parallels for sure. Yeah. Maybe that's something that I miss subconsciously as well.
Yeah, no, exactly.
How long so you obviously knew that you were going to retire. That was no surprise. But how long were you concocting this new idea of cycling around the world and starting that new adventure?
Well, the cycling was something a number of years ago. I was thinking 3 or 4 years ago. I can't really remember exactly. I had lived in the Netherlands for 40 years. That's quite a time, live here. And I thought I could throw a big party, but I thought, no, what I'd like to do is I'd like to get to know the country, really get to know it, to embrace it even. Well, it's too big to cuddle. So I thought, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll cycle around it. That's a good idea. I'll cycle around the border. So I said to my husband, would you mind if I sort of used about 8 weekends? Because I was working during the week, of course. So I didn't think of taking the time off to cycle around for a whole month. And I thought I'll catch the train. I'll start at home and then end up somewhere and stay a night in a bed and breakfast, and then continue the next day, Sunday evening, find a station that somehow I could get myself back home. And then my husband said, I'll tell you what, I'll organise the bed and breakfast for the first night, and and that was somewhere near the Belgian border. And then we'd have supper together, and I'd say, oh, do you know what I saw today? And did you know that? And I never knew that the Dutch did this. And I never knew that this part of the country grew this, or there were lots of pig farms or whatever. And he found this quite fascinating. He really enjoyed listening to me blabbing on about the Netherlands. So he decided in the weekends that he would actually drive me to the place that I stopped the Sunday before. And when we started to get further north, we had to go on the Friday. Otherwise, it would have been too far to go, although the Netherlands is not that long as it is wide, but it still takes about 3 or 4 hours to get from the south to the north. That doesn't sound much for an American, but it's quite a long way. Yeah.
I remember taking the train. It felt like a long time. A 3-hour train ride is the real deal.
And I really enjoyed it. And then, of course, what happens when you do these things? You're I don't know, you're Googling or something, and you think, Land's End to John Ogroats. That's the most iconic one, and the end to end they call it. I thought that'd be fun. And so then that's when an idea sort of it's a seed in your head, isn't it? And that's what happens to me. And they're quite dangerous things because I think, that's a nice idea. And then the seed starts to grow, and then it starts to take form, and then you start to buy the books. That's the most dangerous part.
That's the very dangerous. Yeah.
And then the maps start turning up, and the walls start getting full of maps.
I can see that, yes.
Yeah. And that's what happened. And then I don't know where Rome came into it. I suppose because I think Rome is kind of the place where, since the Middle Ages, that people would actually do a pilgrimage, if that's what they wanted to do. So I think that was where Rome, the idea of Rome came. And this year would have been to go around Ireland. But of course, because of the travel restrictions, it's going to be too late in the year, and it'll be raining and dark. And so we're just going to go around the Netherlands again. So do it that way.
And did you make the trip from what you said, Land's End to John Ogroats? Did you do that?
Yes, I did that 2 years ago.
Okay, 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And what did it take to make that happen? That seems like it would take a lot of preparation.
Well, of course, one thing, as you know, here in the Netherlands, there are more bikes than cars. And, most people have like 2 bikes, a slower bike and a faster bike.
Sure.
So cycling is something that we'll do here all the time. So you cycle to the shop, you cycle into town, you could cycle to work. People don't just usually cycle on their own. They cycle with a child in front and a child behind, and shopping bags on the side or whatever, as you know. So you get enough opportunity to train, for example, but you have to you have to once or twice a week, you have to start doing the 70 to the 80 to the 90 to the 100 kilometers. And then you'll have a long weekend where you'll do 3 times 90 or 3 times 100 kilometers. And then you might go for a whole week where you're doing 100 a day. And that's how you train. And I think running and doing push-ups and squats and climbing steps and things like that, just to keep yourself fit.
So you're really committed to that. Yeah.
Yeah. It's not massive. It's not that you're training every day. You're doing a little bit of cycling. Like my plan is tomorrow is to cycle from Breda, which you'll know, and to cycle back home. So take the bike on the train to Breda and then cycle back home. That'll be about 70, 75, 80 kilometers.
Okay.
And then you do it in headwinds, and then you do it in the rain, because you've got to kind of have the different systems as well.
Well, the funny thing is, we talked about this a little bit earlier, but the show with Ewan McGregor, Long Way Down, he does this on a motorcycle, and it's viewed as this very impressive feat. He's on a motorcycle. You're on a regular bike.
Yeah. Not an electric bike either. This is a regular bike.
Oh, not a pedal assist bike. That's incredible. So in terms of the stuff that you have to bring, did you have a backpack, or what kind of...
Well, don't forget, I had my husband and I invested in this really small expedition hut. It's kind of like a little caravan. It's it's very, very small, but it's so typically Dutch. It's so organised. Everything about it. It's got solar panels. It's got floor heating. But literally, only I can stand. If the bed is out, only I can stand in it. So you get up in the morning, one's got to get out of it before the other one can. So you take a lot with you, okay? So your extra cycling trousers and shirts and whatever. But in your bike bags, or panniers as they're called, the bike bags, you do have one bag full of food and lots of water, and the other one clothes, because I'm eating about 3,000 calories a day when I'm cycling. So if I don't want to disappear, I have to keep that many calories. So you've got lots of your sandwiches with you, you've got pastas with you, you've got fruit with you, you've got your water with you. So lots of things you've got to have on board, because they're not, especially in cycling through parts of England over the moors, for example, the Highlands, through lots of woods and forests, and also cycling down to Rome. There were days that you didn't see a little corner shop or a shop or anybody even. So you have to have everything on board. And then you have to have your rain clothes, of course, and a warmer jacket and maybe an extra jacket. And so you've got about, I don't know, maybe 10 kilos on board carrying on your bike. And you just sort of, so you've got two back and you've got two front loaders, back loaders and front loaders, they're called. You've mostly seen people on these bikes. Yeah. And they balance the bike as well. So you just got to balance it. Okay. And the rest is in the expedition hut, as I call it, little caravan.
Sure. So describe to me your relationship then with Africa. How did you start? Was this the first time that you went to Africa? How did that begin, that part of?
Yeah, that's interesting. Our daughter, she studied, did part of her training out in Africa, in Ghana.
Okay.
Up in the northern part of Ghana, and she was very homesick. She's a tough cookie, but she was definitely homesick. So I decided I'd go out, and it was just before Christmas, about the 5th of December, which is the Dutch Christmas, of course. And I decided to go out. It was the first time, Ross, that I've ever been sub-Sahara. Mm. And it was like landing on the moon or even Mars. It was amazing, absolutely amazing. I've never seen anything like it. Fascinated me. And in case, traveling with your daughter, which is great fun, because being a student, she'll take you in what they call the matatas, or I think they're called the trotros in Ghana, the matatas, those little old buses that are falling to pieces. I think they came from Europe because they weren't allowed to be on the roads here, and they were sent off to Africa. So the Africans used them as kind of buses and taxis. And they would fill up with Africans and goats and gas bottles, the whole lot. And you travel up to where she was studying and staying. So, you got a really sort of different, it wasn't the tourist route that I took. It was the student route I took. And I found it a great eye-opener. And Anna also took me around the hospital. And it was quite shocking when you're used to a Dutch health system. It really was the opposite of. So I don't know. You start to think, my God, surely I can help. Surely I can do something. Surely I can do something. But the young students were against helping Africa. They were just against it. They felt that they weren't helping themselves, and I thought, gosh, this is it. So when I got home, listening to the young ones as well, the young students studying there, and my own thoughts on the whole thing. And my husband was, it's a long story, this one, but I'll try and keep it short. My husband was the treasurer of refugee work in the Netherlands. And there was a discussion going on around about Christmas time about two young Somalian girls here with their parents who couldn't afford winter coats. So I said, well, that's crazy. Surely you can do something. I said, tell you what, the kids aren't home for Christmas. We won't have Christmas dinner. We'll give our Christmas dinner money and we'll get them some coats. And then there was the magazine. There were doctors from Afghanistan who they were here in the Netherlands, but they couldn't get a job. because their Dutch wasn't up to standard. So at that time, I was the director of client relations at Regina Caeli. So I asked the rest of the other members of the board and also the shareholders whether they'd be prepared to open up a number of weeks a year to help people like this to kind of find the job that they needed, and what they'd been taught to do, for example, medicine, and they did. So then I felt, well, at that time, so I used a talent, and that's when we get back to the idea that a talent doesn't have to be hugely something successful as what we think, but the talent that I didn't particularly need to have a big Christmas dinner, or the talent that I had a certain position within a company that I could actually knock on the door of the shareholders and say, excuse me, would you help? And so that's the seed, isn't it? That's the seed again. And then see it all starting and thinking, what else could I do? And at that time, one of our colleagues, Nikki, she introduced me to a guy from Kenya who she felt would fit into that category of coming to our institute for a week. And quite an amazing young guy. He was a cleaner at the Mars factory. And he had an orphanage in Kenya, but he had this incredible knack of having suppers at his house, which really was very, very tiny, and he didn't have that much money, but he'd have the Kenyan ambassador there. He would have the local mayor there. So he would get things up and running, and then we started to help him. And then I went out to Kenya, and that's how it all started, really. An idea was born. We were being driven around by, my driver was called Morris, and he was quite impressed with the way the work we were doing. And I said, Morris, would you take me to your home, to your village, because we're going to pass it on our way back to Nairobi. And he did, and they lived in a mud hut, and they had two little boys at that time, and they couldn't send them to school. So that's how it started, sending these two boys, and then they had a daughter, and then I started to send more girls in that whole slum area. And he's now my contact in Kenya. So, I just do it with him as my contact and myself. And that's how it all started. It kind of grew into something to what it is now. It's called the Lori Tierney Foundation. You can just Google it, Lori Tierney Foundation, and
we'll put it on the screen.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just what kind of talents do we all have? And we all have a range of talents, but we always think of talents as being hugely successful in something, but as I said, it could just be running or walking or cycling or knowing somebody.
Right.
And
how, go ahead.
No, sorry.
How did you link, because you had the cycling, you've running, your cycling, how did you end up linking the good that you wanted to do with the cycling? Because I think that's fascinating as well.
Well, that brings us back to where we both used to work, the Language Institute, Regina Caeli, is that when we opened up those places, and then Nikki introduced the Kenyan chap called Julius, we set up, or I set up in Regina Caeli, the Nuns on the Run.
I remember that. Yeah, I think
Nuns on the Run, and that was also fundraising. We did it for fundraising, and that money actually started to go to Kenya to help this guy Julius and what he was doing at that time. And then I realized it was great fun if you ran or did a marathon or a half a marathon. You said, okay, if I run a marathon, will you give me €4 and 1 cent, for example, or €42, sorry, for the 42 kilometers, or will you give me €42? Or because I am 65 plus, will you double that? So you started to use all these things, and people did, Ross. They were very, very generous in what they gave. And you realize with that little bit of money, because it just costs €10 a month to send a child to school, gets educated. They also get breakfast and lunch, which feeds their bellies, fills up their tummies, which allows them to learn, even better than if they have an empty tummy. Mm-hmm. So that was the link of, it started actually at Regina Coeli with the Nuns on the Run. And then when I left, of course, and I think just before that, Nuns on the Run, it was virtually till I left. Okay. And so then I had to start doing something myself, and the cycling was different. People will listen to a story. They quite like the idea of doing that, and I send it out on polar steps so people can look at the blogs and look at the photos and donate.
And what mechanism do you prefer for accepting donations? Kickstarter or does Polar Steps do that? Is it built in?
No. Actually, because I've got quite a small organisation. I could have a direct link to a bank account. Mm-hmm. So you just click on that and the money goes in. But that actually would cost a few €1,000 to get that set up, and that would mean that I couldn't send a number of children to school if I did that. So now it's just literally old-fashioned. You'll see the bank number, the international bank number, and it's literally a matter of typing it in.
Okay.
But it's up until now it has worked to do it that way. But I might have to change that in the future. But that's the next step.
Okay, sure. And how many more of these cycling journeys do you have planned? Obviously, last year was very crazy with the pandemic, but how many do you plan to do?
Well, that I don't know. But what I've also with last year, what I noticed is with the blog and everything is that people said you've got to write a book about this, and I think the book would be. How do you do it? How do you cycle from Amsterdam to Rome? How do you know which path to use? Because you're only using cycle paths and very, very small roads. So how do you know that? What have you got on board? You've got a GPS system, you've got your maps and everything, but also what it does to you, your thoughts during the day, how you have to keep yourself fit, how you can do it. So to inspire people to go that little bit further. You can do a little bit, you can do a lot more than you think you can do. And so I've started to write, and hopefully in a number of months that will be finished. And I hope to sort of sell it, and also as fundraising. And because I can't go to Ireland this year, because that will be next year's, and next year I will be 70. So I thought it might be quite fun to do something like Ireland. And my parents both come from Ireland. My name Tierney is very, very Irish. So to kind of go back to the roots and cycle the whole of the border of Ireland in that very special birthday year, that might even be nicer. So this year is around the Netherlands, which is still 1,700 kilometers. And because this idea of slow traveling, where's this pandemic going to lead us to? Will we be able to travel again? But the idea of slowing down, looking at the world differently, noticing things a little bit more, I thought it might be nice to do that and to actually write a book for the British market, for the English market, because I think the Netherlands, as you know yourself, have the most wonderful cycle paths. I mean, we're just spoiled here. You get onto a cycle path and it's just comfortable, it's easy, it's ultra safe. Yeah, I mean, True. Cycling in Italy, I tell you, is not ultra safe. Cycling through Rome is not ultra safe. It's actually the opposite. So, and with that idea, that's an idea of fundraising, of going out there. I have somebody who said they'd make a video of me and the book to get that out there as a part of the marketing to advertise it. So these are ideas that are going on. So the Netherlands this year, Ireland next year, and I don't know.
That's something. I'm sure it'll be something.
I think Vienna or something, Berlin or Vienna or...
Berlin would be amazing.
Yeah.
So what are the philosophical part of you? What are some of the things that you have learned or lessons that you have taken away from this new experience?
I think, well, especially with the cycling, I think it's letting go. Letting go. So let's go back to what you first said about there's that success. So because we do, don't we? Our identity is what we do. Our identity is that success in our job. And then all of a sudden, you don't have the job anymore. So you're retired, or you've lost your job, or it could be for many reasons. Somehow you've kind of lost an identity because the success is gone. And that's rubbish. It's absolute rubbish, because it's there all the time, the identity and the success within yourself. So it's letting go and realizing who you are, your own identity, what you can do, those are your own special talents that can help others. So not knowing where you're going to end up that day, not knowing who you're going to meet. You know how difficult the track or the road could be, or how the gradient of a mountain, because you've got all apparatus nowadays and maps to do that. But you just pedal, and you just concentrate on the track and the path and the birds and the leaves and the flowers and the river and the forest and the woodland. It's just you and nature. And you become so aware of your own limitations and your own shortcomings, and what a gift life is, just each day for what it is, without having all that materialism that we've all got so used to. And I know it sounds awfully, but it is what it. Yeah, no, but that's I think were the things that I loved so much about it. That you can actually do a lot with so little. You can actually be happy and enjoy with so little. And the things that make you happy and the things that you enjoy, they're free, Ross. They don't even cost money.
Right.
And that's what we've lost, that, haven't we? So I think, that's
Okay.
the things I took with me, I think, or I discovered.
Very profound.
I think I knew them.
But know
they became ultra.
Feel it in a different way.
Exactly. Yeah. And being at one with nature, I mean, that is so forceful. That's so magical. It really is. But many people most probably would hate to be on their own. I mean, I wasn't on my own in the evenings. I had my husband to chat about our days and who he had met and what went wrong and what didn't go wrong and whatever. But during the day, I mean, you spent 100 kilometers cycling on your own, and I enjoy that, but maybe many wouldn't. But it's worth trying it and having a go. Absolutely.
Sure. That sounds incredible. Now you've got me excited to try it. I've never done anything even remotely close to that.
Well, I think there are people that cycle the Route 66, aren't there? And there are people that cycle all the way across America. I've met a number of cyclists on my routes that have done that. It's quite tough. It's very hot as well at some parts.
Yeah, you'd have to be in quite good shape, but I'm sure it can be done. Well, maybe that'll be one of your next challenges. Maybe in a couple of years you'll be out here. Who knows? So having done all of that, what does success mean to you now? What would you define success as?
Oh dear. Gosh, that's a. What would I define success? I think I'd define success as just being happy with who you are and what you've got. Realizing that each day is a lovely gift to be able to meet new people and to do different things. I think that for me would be success.
Wow. That's very, very, very special. And a lot of people are not operating on that frequency, I don't think. Generally. Certainly not on Instagram, in case you've noticed.
Oh, yeah. I'm on Instagram as well, although I get bored every now and again, and then I'm not on it for a while, and then I'll use it. I definitely use it as a platform when I'm traveling like this, because that's a nice platform to share who you've met or what you do during the day. But each day to go on and to say what you're good at and how beautiful you are, and that I get bored. I get bored.
But you're supposed to say that success is more followers and money and a nicer car. That's the
No,
obvious
no,
answer,
no. But that,
right?
yeah, I know.
How could you possibly be happy with only 1,000 followers? That's
Yeah,
ludicrous.
yeah, no.
You need 100,000, or better yet, 100 million.
Or
Right?
maybe you'll be
Then
happy
you'll be
with
happy.
none. Actually, maybe that's what it is.
Yeah, I think that's very true. That's all pure evil, honestly.
You know that
That's
I think that sort of hit me. It must have been about 9 years ago or something. I think I was sort of around about 60. That I said to my husband, that was another one of my mad ideas. I said, I'd love to circumnavigate the world. It might have been the time that you were there, Ross. I don't know. I'd love to circumnavigate the world. So I took six weeks off. It was around about Christmas time, so you could quite easily have a little bit longer. I took 6 weeks off, and we bought a around the world ticket. We went to one of these travel agents that, where all these young backpackers go to, and said, we'd like to have a round the world ticket. And I know that we've got grey hair, but we still would like one of those tickets. And so we chose very, very carefully where we wanted to go and where we wanted to stop. But the thing was, we were only allowed, this is one of my things, but we were only allowed to take 5 kilos of luggage. And so it literally was, I travelled with my running shoes on and maybe my running trousers as well. And you had a kind of a hoodie with you, and you had short sleeves, long sleeves, a bikini, a wraparound, and that was it really. No hair dryer, and your means of reading or connection were your iPad and your iPhone, and you had your kind of chargers and things like that. And my lipstick. I needed my lipstick, but that wasn't so much weight. And so we did this, and we just stayed in hostels. So it was on a shoestring. The whole idea was to circumnavigate the planet on a shoestring, and we did this as well. But what was fascinating about the whole thing is that when we got back, you realized that you didn't need anything. You didn't need all those things that you thought you needed. So we'd buy a book at an airport. We'd connect up with people at airports because that's where the Wi-Fi was the best. We'd buy a book, read the book. My husband might read the book that I just bought. And then so you'd have 2 books to read, for example, and then you'd leave it somewhere for somebody, and then you'd buy another one. So you didn't have loads of books and that sort of thing. And when I got back, we had 2 cars in the driveway, and I realized that I hadn't missed my car. We'd done everything on public transport with buses, or we'd walked, or with trains, and of course aircraft to take us from one continent to another. And how easy it was. And I sold my car. And that's when I really started cycling, because I would cycle into Chailey every day. From then on, I cycled. And in the Netherlands, I bought myself one of these skirt saddles. Yeah, you have those as well. So you could actually put your high heels on, your dress, and just get on your saddle, and you could start cycling, and your dress and your clothes wouldn't be sort of all crumpled at the back or whatever. And you can also colleagues at Chailey as well, because they know about this. And for a whole year, I didn't buy anything. I didn't literally buy anything. And unless I needed a pair of running socks, or I needed a new pair of running shoes. I mean, that's something you would have to. No, I didn't buy anything. I didn't buy a new dress. I didn't buy a shirt. I didn't buy anything. What? And you realize that you had so much, and nobody noticed, and you didn't notice. So again, it's coming back that we don't need all that stuff that we have. And even I still have too much. We still have too much.
Mm-hmm. I feel that. When we came here, that lesson was, we learned that, I think, when we moved here, because we had 2 cats, we had to move from the Netherlands. It was very fast. We could only take 2 suitcases, so we had to fit our entire life into 2 suitcases to move to the U.S. That's it. We didn't ship anything. There were no containers, no boxes, no nothing. 2 cats, 2 suitcases, and that was our whole life. And then you realize the incredible burden of stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
That the more stuff you have, the harder it is to move, the harder it is to make any kind of change. And to this day, that experience, I will look around our apartment and I'll say, oh, if I see something that I think we don't need, I immediately have this feeling of like, let's get rid of it, let's donate it. So I feel that very strongly. And I think if you move a lot, you also notice that, even if it's within the country or the region.
But having said all that, there's one thing
Yeah.
that I do buy and I do collect.
Okay.
I think that maybe collect is maybe not the right word. Is I have a library here because something I love doing.
Yes.
So
Yes.
I have lots of books.
I understand that.
Would I miss those books if they weren't there? Most probably not. But because I live here and I can use them. I use them for teaching. I use them to look things up. I use them to reread. So it's kind of like my Google, if you like, although it takes up a lot of space. But now
lots of notes.
Sorry?
Lots of notes in all of your books, handwriting and
absolutely.
highlighted.
I write all over my books. Exactly. Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
So you can reference them. Yeah, I love that.
Exactly.
That makes sense.
Absolutely. And it's all organized in philosophy books and old medical books and novels and fiction and non-fiction. Mm. So there's a whole system to it. But I'm afraid books is something that I love, and I haven't yet learned the art of reading an e-reader or on my iPad or telephone. I like paper and the artisan use of paper and pens and pencils.
Yeah. I'm the same way. I did the e-reader thing for a while. I did the digital books, audiobooks, but I came back to physical books for those exact reasons. And it's so nice. And I'm a digital guy. I'm 100% digital. That's my whole thing. Yeah. But the idea that you can highlight all of the pages that you like, that you can underline, there's just something so powerful in that I don't think you can quite replace it. And you might be able to, select a thing in your e-reader and highlight it, as it were. But I'm with you there, actually, 100% on that.
So I have them here, for example, the moleskins, and I call them my paper brain. So if there's a word that I don't know, like a Dutch word or French word or a book that I'd like to read, but I'm not going to buy it yet, I'm going to wait, or something that I've heard, that's really nice, I'll write that down. And I might not always remember it, but I have a brain that says, I've got that somewhere, hold on, and I'd be able to, I can kind of visualize it, and I can go to my book and think, oh yes, here it is, I've got it here.
Right.
And I've got a whole shelf of these, it's called Paper Brain.
I like it. I might steal that from you. I like it a lot.
I don't know. I remember by writing. Mm-hmm. Yeah, same. I kind of internalize things by writing. And it's the same with writing the book on the trip to Rome, as you'll see here. It's just full of notes that I kind of write when I think about them to be able to add to the story. Or I've done some research work I read about a number of cyclists. I haven't done the same because nobody's written about cycling as such. They've done the end-to-end route. Mm-hmm. And it's quite nice to read the books and then to look at the verbs that people have used for cycling, or use the adjectives that they've used, or nouns, or because there's a whole series that you will have the words, but they wouldn't come to mind immediately. So I write them down and I kind of steal them in a way, but not steal them. Just remind my brain that they're out there somewhere and I can use them.
That's just living. That's just being a writer. That's what everybody does. I don't think that's new. This has been really, really wonderful. I don't want to take too much of your time. It's been excellent so far. Very profound stuff already mentioned. I do want to do a bit of a speed round. A couple quick questions. Okay, if you're ready.
You want quick answers, do you?
Yes, quick. We're gonna wrap it up with a few quick questions. First, how many languages do you speak?
I speak 2 languages really well, and that's English and Dutch.
And Dutch, okay, sure.
And there's a bit of French and there's a bit of German.
Okay, yep, sounds good. For somebody who is either being forced to make a major change or sees one on the horizon or who has recently retired, anybody who is staring down the barrel of a very major life change and they don't know what to do, what advice might you have? My advice would be, dare to take the plunge.
dare to jump off the edge. It's never as deep as you think. It's never as shallow as you think. The water you jump into is never as hot or cold as you think. It's worth going. But you have to use your gut feeling. You have to really use your heart and your gut feeling and know that something is right and dare to do it. Just go for it.
I like it. Who's your favorite philosopher?
Oh, Hannah Arendt.
Okay, I don't know who that is.
Hannah Arendt, she was in America for the last years of her life.
Okay.
She wrote about the Eichmann trials and the banality of evil.
Okay.
She talked about totalitarianism, and her philosophy is very. I think it's very current. You can see a lot of her philosophy in what's happening to the world today. That and Isaiah Berlin. And Isaiah Berlin was very well known for his positive and negative freedoms. So what is freedom and what is they're two of my very favorite, which are very unusual because people would usually sort of say Aristotle or Socrates or
right. Are there books that correspond, particular works that you would recommend?
Well, The Banality of Evil.
Oh, that is the name.
Adam.
Okay.
Oh,
gotcha.
yeah. That's a must.
Banality of Evil.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay. And from Hannah Arendt?
But that's The Banality of Evil.
Oh, who's the second one then? I must have misunderstood.
Hannah Arendt is The Banality of Evil, or that's the book you should read. And Isaiah Berlin would be Positive and Negative Freedom. Isaiah Berlin.
Okay, got it. Yeah. Understood. There we go. I was getting my wires crossed. Okay, best piece of advice you've ever received?
Gosh. Do you know, I'm going to mention something that my father once told me.
Sure.
And that was, go out and play in the rain, because in the rain you grow. So I think it's a kind of a metaphor of not being, just go out and do things. Just go and do it. Yeah. Most people think if you go out in the rain, you're going to get cold, you're going to get sick, But my father always taught us that if you go out in the rain, to play, for example, that's the reasoning behind it, you grow. So we believed that we would grow. We believed that we would really get taller if we went out and played in the rain. But you can use it as a metaphor and an anecdote for many, many things in life.
I love that. Don't be afraid of something that you might be afraid of. Or lean into the negativity or something like that.
Yeah, lean into the negativity, because that's what people do. Or don't go out. It's raining. Yeah. You'll get a cold. You'll catch your death out there. Whereas I was taught the opposite. I was taught, no, to go out there. You get strong doing that.
That's wonderful. And you've certainly done that. If anybody has leaned into the difficulty, I think it's been you. Not many people are choosing at your age to bike that many kilometers a day or run or do marathons or all of that stuff. So you've certainly kept both that and the plasticity of the mind that is so important. So for that, I think it's incredibly admirable what you have been doing. Thank you. If I could do half of that when I'm your age, I would be thrilled. That sounds remarkable to be able to do that. So kudos to you for keeping the magic going and for finding new things and challenges and ways to give back. That's excellent.
Keeping the curiosity going.
Yeah.
You can call it magic but it is literally just being curious for the other, for the world around you, asking the questions. People don't ask questions anymore. They don't. You do. I mean, in general, people don't really ask questions. You can meet people and you can have very superficial discussion, but isn't it nice to say, God, how did you do that? And what did that mean to you? And how did you feel about that? And people love it if you do that, but we tend not to do that because we're all in a rush and we've got too many other things to do, I suppose.
Yeah.
So staying curious, I think, and in that curiosity, it's not just with that; it's also keeping your body moving. Because if you don't, it gets stiff. and you won't be able to do all those things.
Thanks for listening to the Beat the Often Path podcast. If you've been enjoying this show, please like, comment, share, subscribe on Apple Podcasts, subscribe to me on YouTube. It would mean the world to me. Also, do you have an unusual success story, or do you know someone who does? Well, please recommend them to me. They could be a future guest on this show. Maybe they've rolled the largest boulder down the mountains of Tibet, or maybe they built the world's largest chicken farm in Madagascar. The point is, I don't know what I don't know, so I'm looking for inspiration and unusual success stories. So help me by being a part of this adventure. I'm looking to grow this podcast with you. Thanks again for listening.